This Labor Day at Lowe's, shop member-only doorbuster deals for a limited time. Save $50 on an Ego string trimmer, now $169. Plus, get 50% off select Holland pavers. Not a rewards member? Sign up for free today. But hurry, Labor Day doorbuster deals won't last long. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/1 while supplies last. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Are you a forward thinker? Then you need an HR and finance platform that thinks like you do. Workday is the AI platform that helps propel your organization, your workforce, and your industry into the future. Workday, moving business forever forward.
Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
I want to begin with the question, what if? What if after all the prayers, nothing changes? There are certain Psalms that encourage us. Psalm 139 we just read, I think, is a great source of encouragement. We're reminded about how awesome our God is and how He created us, how He knows everything about us. That's a challenging psalm as well, with some of those imprecatory prayers toward the end of Psalm 139. But then there are some psalms that are just dark. While there are others that begin dark and end with joy and deliverance, the one we're going to look at this morning, it's really challenging. It's dark, it's depressing, it's life. It may actually depict your life at this very moment. In Bible classes, the question is often raised, when you keep praying and praying, but God never gives you the answer you want, how do you handle it? Matt Bassford, in his book, One Last Verse, Matt passed away almost 2 years ago now from ALS, a gospel preacher. A common answer, he said, is that people will often say, well, God sometimes says no. And Matt responded by saying, that answer brings cold comfort. What about you? This psalm is a psalm that is dark. And the challenge that we all often face when we find ourselves in darkness, when we are praying to God on a regular basis, and yet the darkness seems to remain. I want to walk us through this psalm this morning. This psalm will have great application for you and for me, in particular with how we view our God in heaven, the character of God, how we respond with faith. We begin in Psalm chapter 88 in the first 5 verses 1 through 5. What we're going to see is that the psalmist here, he is experiencing what it seems like a sense of abandonment. Verse number 1, O Lord, the God of my salvation, I have cried out by day and night before you. He starts off with the fact that he's been praying on a consistent basis. In fact, throughout this psalm, we're going to see that the psalmist is praying consistently and even at the end. He is crying out to God every night. He recognizes that if he is going to have any salvation, it will come from God. He knows that to be true. He makes the request in verse number 2, let my prayer come before you, incline your ear to my cry. He is pleading passionately. There's passionate prayer taking place here. One of the first things that we're going to see, and a reminder for all of us, is that the righteous can and will face great suffering. This psalmist, he is hurting. It doesn't appear that it's because of sin or something that he has brought upon himself per se. While that can happen in our lives and even in the Psalms as well, but it doesn't look like that to be the case in this psalm. But something has occurred, something is happening, and this psalm, the man who wrote this, he is crying out to God. In verse number 3, for my soul has had enough troubles. He's fed up seemingly. Sometimes we find ourselves in that situation as well. Have you had enough of a particular situation? My soul has had enough troubles, and my life has drawn near to Sheol. He acknowledges his troubles. He sees himself on a path to the grave. The grave is what is up next. In verse number 4, I am reckoned among those who go down to the pit. I have become like a man without strength. One of the more challenging things that all of us will face one day is losing our strength. We put a heavy emphasis and premium on being strong, and strength can come in a variety of ways. For this man, he is in a state of humiliation. He's near the grave. He doesn't have any more strength. Verse 5, forsaken among the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, and they are cut off from your hand. He understands what's going to happen. Those who have died aren't remembered anymore, and certainly it feels like this is what he's feeling at this very moment. He's in a state of darkness. He's in great anguish. And one of the things that is so impressive about this psalm is how raw, vulnerable, and shocking it really reads. He seems to be doing all the right things. He's crying out to God. It shows us we can be authentic with God in our prayers, because that's what this man is doing here. But he's in a state of disorientation. And that's often what happens in our lives as well. When some tragedy or suffering comes upon us, this is typically the place in the Psalms where things begin to change. The light begins to shine. But not in this psalm. It actually gets worse. In verses 6 through 12, if the first 5 verses can be described as feeling abandoned, then the next few verses, this psalmist is in a state of incomprehension. He's shocked at what's taken place. Notice what he says in those earlier verses. In verse 4, he says, I am reckoned. I have become. But now in verse number 6 through 12, it sounds like he's saying, God, you have done this to me. The eyes change to you. It doesn't appear that he's complaining that God has allowed all of these horrible things to happen. He's complaining that God has inflicted them on him. You have put me in the lowest pit, in dark places, in the depths. God, you've done this. Ever feel that way? Your wrath has rested upon me, and you have afflicted me with all your waves. He's saying, I'm experiencing the wrath of God, and it's like one hit after the next with what he's facing in his life. Look at verse 8. He does it again. Verse 7, your wrath has rested upon me, and you have afflicted me with all your waves. Selah. You have removed my acquaintances far from me. You have made me an object of loathing to them. I am shut up and cannot go out. That made me immediately think about Job. I don't know what he's going through. Maybe this is some physical ailment. Maybe he has leprosy or something like that. I don't know for sure. But what I do see is that he's saying, God, you're doing this. Why are you doing this? My eye has wasted away because of affliction. I have called upon you every day, O Lord. That's how he started in verse 1. I have spread out my hands to you. Will you perform wonders for the dead? Will the departed spirits rise and praise you, Selah? Will your loving kindness be declared in the grave? Your faithfulness in Abaddon? Will your wonders be made known in the darkness, and your righteousness in the land of forgetfulness? This man is doing what's right, praying to the Father. He understands where his salvation is to come, but the affliction remains. Maybe a couple of ways to take verses 10, 11, and 12. One, God, if you're going to do something, please do it right now, because I'm running out of time. Death is near. When I first read that, that's what I'm thinking about. Will you perform wonders for the dead? You know, I'm on this side of life now. Now is the opportunity for me to do these things and for you to show up. I like what one person said, that maybe there's even a hint of sarcasm. God, why are you shutting up one of the good guys? Why are the good guys suffering? He seems like he's one of the good guys. And that's what it often seems like in life, doesn't it? That the good guys, the good men and women who are seeking to do what's right, they often suffer even more than those in the world who don't seem to have a care or concern about God or whoever, and often will outlive so many of those who are striving to do what's right. He knows some things, even in the darkness. In verse 11, he knows the loving kindness of God. He knows the faithfulness of God. He knows that God is the God of his salvation, even in the middle of all this darkness. But there is this state of incomprehension. God, why are you doing this? How can this be happening to me? One of the big lessons to take away from this is that sometimes in life, sometimes our situations in life will not make any sense at all. We want to make sense of why we suffer, of why certain things are happening. And it sounds like this is what this man is trying to figure out as well. Sometimes we just don't get the answers. Well, surely here, this is where it has to turn better, right? No. We can say it gets even darker. In the last few verses, there's even more despair. And yet there's also trust. This is not like all the other Psalms that we typically read. In verse 13, he says, "But I, O Lord, have cried out to you for help. And in the morning my prayer comes before you." A continual theme in this psalm. He is constantly praying. You know, one of the things I was thinking about this sermon here, we better be praying on a regular basis. We have got to learn this spiritual habit. We've got to see the importance of prayer. If we are waiting only when the darkness comes and when the darkness hits to then decide to cry out to God, I think we're going to be in trouble, folks. And we've got to stay connected to our Heavenly Father. Our prayers matter. And this man is crying out for help. There's someone probably in this audience who needs help. Well, he's showing you and me who to turn to. God. He's showing the entire world who to turn to. God. And it's impressive that he's doing this even in the darkness. Because a lot of Christians stop turning to God. Stop praying when the difficulties come. Stop worshiping when the darkness does not change on our time schedule. But for this man, I have cried out to you for help. And in the morning, my prayer comes before you. Verse 14. O Lord, why do you reject my soul? Can't get much more honest than that. Why do I feel like you are rejecting me? Yeah, this is hard sometimes for young people to understand. But life has a way of forcing us to come to some realities and waking us up when challenging days come. And as we get older, can any of us relate to what he's saying in verse 14? We may not want to raise our hand in a Bible class and say this, but can anyone else relate that they feel like God is rejecting them? This is what he wrote. Why are you rejecting my soul? Why do you hide your face from me? Why are you playing hide and seek? Because I'm trying to figure this out. Nothing seems to change. I was afflicted, verse 15, and about to die from my youth on. I suffer your terrors. I am overcome. Sounds like this has been going on for a long time. It gets even more challenging, folks. Your burning anger has passed over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. They have surrounded me like water all day long. They have encompassed me altogether. You have removed lover and friend far from me. My acquaintances are in darkness. What do you say to the person who would talk like this to you, or say something similar to this when you ask them in the foyer, how are you doing today? And they just unleash on you. I'm actually doing awful. I feel like God has completely rejected me. I feel all alone. I feel helpless. I feel weak. I feel abandoned. We can't answer that in a quick 10-second soundbite, can we? All right, good to see you. We'll talk to you after services. There's a lot of Christians who feel this way, I would imagine. Folks, that's how the psalm ends. It ends in the darkness. You've removed lover and friend far from me. My acquaintances are in darkness. Where is the joy? Where is the deliverance? Where is the lifting of the darkness? There's despair from beginning to end. Yet there's also trust in the psalmist. I know there's trust because what is he doing throughout the entire psalm? Day and night, he is going to God in prayer. What do we do with this? Well, maybe number one, I should have started with Psalm 87, because that's a lot more cheerful. And maybe for the visitors, you may be thinking, oh, this is what worship is like. This is so sad. I may not come back here. Well, did you know that in Christianity, Jesus talks a great deal about this, and the Bible talks a great deal. It doesn't shy away from the fact that we're going to suffer. I think sometimes people want everything so polished and clean, and just everything works out according to our plans. But this is life in Psalm 88 in a lot of different ways for a lot of people. It's a psalm of lament, of sorrow, of grief, of deep distress before God. It reminds us that the righteous will suffer. The righteous will suffer. That can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. But here's a message of hope. The distinction between the righteous and the unrighteous, we can do what this man did. We can bring our burdens to God. That's exactly what he wants us to do, which is why we have to be people of prayer. We have to develop this spiritual habit of going to God before God in prayer. This psalm also reminds us something that can be pretty challenging sometimes for us to think about. That is this, that following God does not mean He is going to fix all of my earthly problems. Now, He will help us with our main problem, the problem of sin. Certainly we can be blessed on this side of life. But He doesn't seem to be what's going on with this guy here. He's still in the darkness. And one of the more challenging things where people start to stumble, God, I thought you were going to fix my life, make everything better, take it all away. Well, He's not promising us to fix every earthly problem. In fact, some of the problems that we have will never be fixed, can only be fixed on Judgment Day when He returns. Some of the illnesses that we will face will not go away. They will lead us to our death. Some relationships may not change for the better. That's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but it's life. It's reality. And yet through it all, something else shines in this chapter. This is a man of faith. He shows us what faith looks like, utter dependence upon God. You see, his faith was not dependent upon whether the darkness stayed or did not stay. Even in the darkness, he is going to God in prayer. He's pleading to God. He's like that widow in Luke 18 who was just persistent day and night praying to God. But it did make me think about, is the devil right about me? He wasn't right about Job. Remember what he said to God about Job? You know, Job, or God, Job is following you because you put a hedge around him. You have blessed him with so much, but you remove that hedge, what will he do? He will curse you. If our blessings go away, if that hedge goes away, will Satan be right about me and you? One thing I do see about this man, he still is turning to God in the darkness. What a great example of faith. It has to stand, it has to mean something. The truth of the matter is, God does not have to give me or you all the answers. He challenged Job with, I believe, over 70 questions. Where were you, Job? Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Can you shut up the snow and the storehouses like me? Can you make the waves stop at the exact moment? We sometimes may feel like God has to give us every answer, and we have to know all the intricate details about these things that we face, but He doesn't. He is God. We are not. Which leads to another important fact or point to remember, that our Father in heaven is faithful even when our suffering remains. Take that to heart. That may be where the challenge really is. You see, God is always faithful. We have to decide, will we be faithful as well? When the darkness hits, the cancer, the marital struggles, the debt burden, the wars of this world, the layoff, the loss of a child, the loss of a parent, a loved one, a rebellious child in the home, your valley of the shadow of death, which provides no light at the end, mourning and questions will happen. And what this man did and continued to do was go to the God of his salvation. Brothers and sisters, young people, old people, we can turn to God with all of our emotions, with all of our fears and questions. This psalm does not conclude the way I often want the psalms to conclude. It's not the 30-minute TV show. It's not the 2-hour movie with an ending where everything just works out and you have a good feeling when you leave. Even after you leave worship this morning, doing what's right, worshiping God in spirit and truth, some of us are still going to walk out this door with the same suffering and the same challenges when you walk back into your home. That's often how life is. So we better have the proper perspective of God. I will also say this. There are times when the darkness does not lift. But there are other times, if you turn over to Job 42 and verse number 16, you remember what it says there? 2 important words at the end of Job, chapter 42 and verse number 16. I'm reading from the New American Translation. After this, Job lived 140 years and saw his sons and his grandsons 4 generations. And Job died an old man and full of days. I want you to hone in on 2 words in verse 16. After this. There was a lot that went in between Job 1 and 2 and chapter 42, but it does say after this, the darkness eventually lifted. James in chapter 5 and verse number 11 tells us something very important about the qualities that Job had that we need to remember in the darkness, whether they lift or not. In James 5 and verse number 11, we count those blessed who endured. You have heard of the endurance of Job and have seen the outcome of the Lord's dealings, that the Lord is full of compassion and is merciful. That's going to be challenged in the darkness. But the psalmist knew that God was the one of salvation. He knew that he was full of loving kindness. And James reminds us that even in the darkness, remember this, endure, persevere, remain, because God is full of compassion and mercy. But sometimes we just don't see it in the darkness. So Job is a reminder that there will be and can be an after this. But we're going to have to remain with God. Do you remember what's said in Genesis chapter 9 and verse number 28?
Love espresso, drip coffee, and cold brew? With the Ninja Luxe Cafe, if you can crave it, you can brew it. Espresso, balanced. Drip coffee, rich. Cold brew in a flash. With Barista Assist technology, you brew with no stress and no guesswork and make perfect silky microfoam hands-free from dairy or plant-based milks. Shop the Ninja Luxe Cafe at ninjakitchen.com.
You set the table, put on a playlist, even made the lasagna from scratch. And now you're wearing it. OxyClean Max Force Spray tackles tough, set-in stains the first time. Adulting is hard. Fighting stains shouldn't be. OxyClean Max Force. It's not clean unless it's OxyClean.
I think I have, oh no, here it is. This is right. Noah lived 350 years after the flood. Hone in on those three words, after the flood. Noah endured and remained faithful during that dark moment. In fact, for those 120 years building the ark. And that time eventually came after the flood. He's a reminder as well that even in these dark moments, he knew something about God, brethren, that we need to know. And he was able to remain faithful through it all. In 1 Peter chapter 1, Jason talked about this in the Lord's Supper talk. In 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse number 6, these saints are suffering. Notice what Peter says to them. 1 Peter chapter 1. And verse number 6. In this you greatly rejoice, even though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been distressed by various trials. I want you to look at those words, now for a little while. For Job, it was after this. For Noah, it was after the flood. And now Peter is encouraging these saints, you're being distressed, you're going through various trials for a little while. There is darkness that you're experiencing. There's suffering that you're experiencing. It's going to be for a little while. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, Paul reminds us of something as well. The perspective we must hold on to even as we go through difficult days of suffering. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 16, 17, and 18, Paul said, therefore we do not lose heart, but though our outer man is decaying, yet our inner man is being renewed day by day. For momentary light affliction. It doesn't always feel momentary, but when we go through these moments, remember he says, for momentary light affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory far beyond our comprehension. while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. From Noah, from Job, from Paul, from Peter, what I'm seeing is that even during the suffering, even during the difficult days, we need to persevere. We need to remain. We need to stay faithful with our God, because He will be faithful to us. And the light affliction, the suffering we do face, it will be just for a moment when we compare it to what is to come, which is eternity. Psalm 88 is a very challenging psalm. It's a challenging psalm even when you think about prayer and singing to God, this kind of psalm. In your moments of feeling isolated, abandoned, or even in despair, we can still be like this psalmist, where we remain with God. We trust God no matter what it is that we face, because we know the rest of the story. That one day His Son will return. And one day we will be with Him in heaven. And one day we will see Jesus just as He is, according to 1 John chapter 3. Which means that we don't rely upon our trust, our health, our wealth, our status here, because darkness can come at any time in any way. When it does, we better be prepared. Which means that we need to make sure that we're walking with our Savior every day. Maybe there's someone here who needs hope. Maybe there's a Christian who's hanging on by a thread. Well, Psalm 88 is for you. Don't stop crying out day and night to God. Trust in Him, even in the despair. Maybe someone needs to be rescued from sin. Are you broken? Do you understand how weak you really are? You think you have it all figured out? You think you have strong physical strength? You know where you're headed in life? If you don't have Jesus, you're missing everything. And we need to come before Him with a humble heart, knowing that our sin separates us from God, and knowing that we are saved through the blood of His Son, Jesus. Jesus gives us hope. Even as He was on that cross, it all appeared lost. But on the third day, He rose from the grave. And that's where our hope is found as well. If you need to be saved, Jesus says, "He who believes and is baptized shall be saved." If you need prayer, then you have a whole family waiting to pray and waiting to encourage you. Let's stand, let's sing.